Hello, everyone. Welcome to the round table with Brian Zimmerman, and I'm Sarah Blessing. And today is going to be extremely exciting. We are going to be talking about Brian returning home from Iraq in 2006 and how he processed everything that he had experienced over there in the War on Terror, which was, I cannot even imagine. So, this is going to be very exciting. Thanks for doing this with us, Brian. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing okay today. Yeah, I'm out here uh, coming to you from sunny Colorado, doing some work out here. I got to come out for a friend's retirement ceremony. Really
Oh,
good.
that's nice.
Yeah, I got to catch up with a lot of really good friends and see how they're doing. And yeah, it's been really good, really good.
Nice. I'm so glad you're having a good time. Yeah, this is funny that we're not together doing this, but it'll work just fine. Yeah.
It'll work.
Okay. So last week, if you haven't seen that episode, you can go back and watch it. Last week you talked about being deployed, about going over to Iraq, about how scary just the flight over there. It's not like your typical runway. And then as soon as you got there, you really realized, oh, this is war. This is what I've been training for, but this you kind of can't prepare for it. And you also didn't know what it was going to be like when you met your unit, the 5th Special Forces Group that had been there before you. So I don't even know whether you had met them yet where we left off last week.
No,
I didn't think you
no,
had.
no,
So,
no.
okay, so kind of like take it from the beginning. Where are we? This is 2005?
So yeah, I deployed in 2005. Met up with my team over there. Uh, Redeployed, came home from Iraq. I was up in northern Iraq, up in Mosul, for that rotation, and came home somewhere around February, I think 2006 is when we came home. And it was a lot. It really was a lot for me to process. It was easy. It was easier to process it in the team room than it was at home because everyone, typically in the military, when anything involves death or dying or high risk training, it's kind of laughed at. It's kind of goofy, goofing around. Well, yeah, the wife will get the farm and the girlfriend will get the booze. And I mean, just where, you make light of things like that.
I guess it's so you can handle it because every day you or someone you care about might die. So I guess it's just mentally how you survive it.
I think it's just easier to laugh at it because you're around it so often and so much. Even in training, the training is high risk training. So yeah, you just kind of laugh and carry on and do your thing.
You've said this a couple times on the show, but you said it last week. Very quickly you came to the realization that you might not survive this. I am surprised at how quickly your brain went there. It must be a human survival technique, I'm assuming.
I guess it's just the realization that, kind of like I talked about before, the media did such a great job of numbing everyone because it's splashed all over the news every single night, and it's kind of just what happens. So when you actually get to the place where you're used to seeing it on the news, you kind of start to process it in a little different way. But having your teammates with you and the people you care about and you trust, completely, it makes it a little bit easier to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad you had people with you experiencing the same thing because I don't know how anybody does it. So how long were you able to stay home for that break?
We came home, and we typically, when you come home, there's a reintegration process that you have to go through. So you're required to go and talk to the shrink, take post deployment health assessments, all of that stuff, and all of those questions. It's, did you deal with any roadside bombs? Were you in any blasts? Did you see any bodies? Did you have to kill? Did you? And they ask all of those things, and it was very, it, I was thinking about this before we went live, but I was very, very careful about how I answered all of those questions because I didn't want to, I didn't want to be truthful and honest and have the shrink come back and say, oh, hey, you should probably sit this one out, sit the next one out. There's some things you've got going on. And so, and I would venture to say, not speaking for everyone, but I would say that's about how most guys answered those questions because they didn't want to get pulled from the team and or have to, miss out on training or deployments.
I was just going to ask that. Yeah, I bet a lot of you all did that because you want to go back and keep helping. And so you just don't, and you don't really want to open up that can of worms in your head, right? You don't want to open up what you had seen. So you didn't give a whole lot of detail is kind of what you're saying when the shrink asked you those questions.
Yeah, very, very minimal details at most, and it's, I have to say, and as far as for me, I think, and for people that, that I know, I'm not so sure that it was very much, maybe at the beginning it was all about, well, I'm going to go over there and do everything I can do to help. And, and you realize really quickly that there's one, it's just a train wreck, and you're trying to minimize the damage. But on the same hand, how much am I really helping? But there's so much going on. There's so much action. There's so much getting to do what it is that you've been trained to do. And first and foremost, you're around just unbelievably talented people who are willing to pass on their knowledge and what they've experienced. And so it very quickly becomes more about people that are to the right and left of you than it is, I would say, for me, so much about how much good am I doing.
That's so fascinating. I wouldn't have thought that, but now that I'm reading that book and knowing you, it makes complete sense. So you're wanting to go back so that you can protect your friends and be there for them.
I mean, yes, I mean that is the, ground level, but also too getting to go over there and inflict as much damage as possible because of what happened, on 9/11. I mean, this isn't even Afghanistan yet. This is still Iraq, so we'd very much become a war culture, and it was very popular, I think, at the time to be part of that. So getting to be on the front line of the, for the lack of a better word, Spartan culture. The Spartans seems to turned into the, the military. They use the Spartan lifestyle very much as a headline for, strength and honor and, death before design, just kind of goofy stuff like that. And so, but it turned into being able to go do something that not a lot of people got to do. And it validated me, it validated other people. And
you felt important. You felt needed.
We were looked at, I mean, the tab says special forces, special. And that's how we felt. That's how we acted. That's how we carried ourselves. And,
I mean, it seems very well deserved to me. You can listen to the episodes about your training and what you went through to get there. I mean, you learned Farsi in 6 months, which was like one of the hardest things you've ever done. You worked really hard to get over there. I would think there was an adjustment period of, okay, you have all this training and you were trained for so much. You get there, you're thrown into war, you do missions, and then you take a break. Was there time for your brain to catch up with what you thought it was going to be, with what it actually was, and then preparing to go back? Like, take us through your headspace.
I would say the headspace was very much we had earned it. I really despise that word deserve. I really can't stand it. And that we earned it. We earned the right to go there and do what it was that we were doing. And with earning that right, there's also, we also took on a debit to everyone else around us. When we show up, we're expected to have the answer, because we've got that tab You walk into a room, it doesn't matter what the problem set is. Hey, that guy there in the back, he's got the answer. Didn't matter what his rank was, he's got the tab. And so I think, but you very quickly learn that it's the man that makes the tab. It's the man that makes the Green Beret. It's not the other way around. We'll dive more into that in future episodes, but
yeah, I can't wait.
Preparing to do the next one, to get in there and do the next rotation. And, it was exciting because you were with people that cared about it just as much as you did. They wanted to see you get better just as much as they wanted to get better. And, like I said, just being surrounded by so many talented and experienced people, it just, it would be so wrong to not capitalize on trying to gain everything you possibly could from those people.
That's interesting. So you're still in a thirst for learning from all of these amazing experts, people that you admire and look up to. You're still learning from them when you're doing this, I guess, because you're a newbie too. You're one of the newer ones.
You're kind of in the community. You're kind of considered a new guy really for about the first 3 years, maybe.
Wow.
4 years, until you've got quite a bit of experience under your belt and you've proven that they can squeeze you and they're going to get juice. You're kind of on that probational type level, where everything you do is being scrutinized, and for good reason, but they want to see that you're learning what they're putting out. So yeah.
So you go through talking to the shrink. You don't give a whole lot of detail. What happens next?
They sign their name and get ready for the next one. But at that point, when we came home, so my team was very blessed. We had, like I said, senior people on the team. So as we went into training, regardless of the scenario of training, we had guys on the team that were there and ready to coach us along the way, especially the new guys. We had new people that were coming into the company. When we redeployed back, there were new guys waiting there, to receive us and help us with our gear and all of that stuff. And they didn't know what team they were going to, but they were kind of at the disadvantage where they had to go to a team that had just come back, with all this experience, and they had already started to build this cohesive unit. And so here they come brand new, walking in, kind of like it was when I went to Iraq and my team came and picked me up there. There was that, here we go. I hope I've really got what it takes to meet these guys, their expectations. So yeah, it was great. I mean, I loved the training. It got to the point to where, honestly, training was really all I cared about. Home life was really starting to take a hit. I would say quite a bit, because I would just as soon be at work as I would be at home, because I was in that constant learning frame of mind where everything guys were telling me, I was just soaking it up like a sponge, and the opportunity to go to advanced schools and things like that. And, I'd put my hand up for just about all of that stuff that I could, just to try to keep learning and, and have that tool in my tool bag that just might come into play one day. So that home life was, that was a struggle. It really was.
Yeah, because you didn't have any room in your head, in your heart, for anything else. I mean, it makes sense. What you're doing is so serious, and you soaking up one piece of information might save somebody's life or your life. So you're really dedicated to that. Have you been able to go back and give yourself grace for being that way?
Grace. I think I did what I needed to do at the time in order to get through what it was that I was going through. Maybe grace may not be the word. I would say maybe more of you're that young, dumb kid that you found that one thing that you're able to validate yourself through, and you clung on to that for for survival's sake. So I would say maybe Grace more now, but at the time that I wouldn't say that Grace had really entered the picture just yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who you were back then and the version of you that I know, I imagine is very different. I imagine you're not doing a lot of reflecting. You're surviving.
Right. Yeah. A lot of surviving, learning.
Yeah.
And it was something that I felt that I was good at. I was getting positive feedback. So when you're doing well at something, you want to continue to prove your worth and get better at it. And, you
It
know,
so goes to the way you were raised before you were adopted by the Zimmermans, where you thought you had to do certain things to get love. And if you messed up, you didn't get the love you needed. So
mhm,
here you are. You've got it. You got the validation. You're in one of the hardest things ever. You're doing one of the hardest things, most honorable things. You're getting that validation. But I imagine you're also not getting the things that you 100% need to be a healthy human, because
yeah,
that's not healthy.
right.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I would say that was pretty accurate. The concern about myself and my inner well-being, and that wasn't on the radar, because the external being on the team, that took the place of the team, became everything, absolutely everything. And my hat is off to those guys that were able to balance both of those, because that's I consider it a talent. A lot of us were just not able to separate the team from the family, which is kind of funny. I think I may have said it before, but there's kind of a running joke in group that team parties are an opportunity to introduce your wife and kids to your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a very true statement. So yeah, I also too, I would say I had started drinking quite a bit at that
Mm.
point. I was in the house, and for me, drinking a lot at that point didn't require a lot of alcohol, but because of the stress during training, when we would go, on temporary duty to go to different training venues and things like that, it's very much part of the community that you're going to go out and you're going to drink and you're going to have a good time and you're going to chase women and you're looking for that next high, and that it builds that team cohesive. Okay, hey, I can trust that guy. He's shown that he's willing to be somewhat nefarious and dependable, and that builds cohesion. So the drinking, for me, while at home, it just became a way to completely numb and tune out the nagging of hey, you're lacking in your responsibilities here as a husband, and I kind of need you to step your game up. And my thought was, I step my game up 6 days a week during training, 5 days a week during training, and when I come home, I just want to come home and really just be left alone. I just, you want to go to dinner, we'll go to dinner. You want to have get together with some neighbors, we'll get. But other than that, can you just kind of let me do me? Can I be selfish? And
Hmm. I
so,
mean, it's not like you came back and you went to the therapist and you like poured your heart out and got all this great help. You were like, oh, this could prevent me from going back. So you didn't use that tool. It makes complete sense that
yeah,
you're
yeah,
only human. You might be doing amazing, incredible things. You might be incredibly intelligent and brave, but you're still human. There's only so much you can do. So, okay, so what happens next?
I, so next we start gearing up and getting ready to go again. And at that time, you're on cycles. So you're on your cycle where you're training, getting ready to go. You're on your down cycle. You're on your training cycle. And so we were on our down cycle, moving into our training cycle or tasking cycle, to where we could be, if there's an external tasking, hey, you need to go to Fort Bragg to be a lane walker at Robin Sage, or you need to go be a guest instructor here, or or go to a school or whatnot. We were kind of moving into that period of time. And so it was strange for me. I think I got tasked to go to, no, I went to another survival school. I went to another SEER school.
Oh,
Uh, and up in Washington. I learned a lot from the one that I was in school,
Washington, D.C. or Washington State?
Washington State, up in Spokane, Washington. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so that was a great course. Came back. I think I ended up doing a Robin Sage tasking. And yeah, I was gone. I was gone.
Let me tell you what I thought was going to happen when you told me you came home from war for the first time. I thought you were going to get months of vacation. How much time off did you have?
Well, it was, I think we ended up, after you come back and you do your refit and you get things turned in that need to get turned in and worked on, things like that, your travel voucher, all that stuff, financial stuff taken care of, then typically guys will go on about 30 days of leave, and so in SF, where it really wasn't that good. Generally, whenever you build it, you get 2.5 days every month that you can accrue towards vacation. So whether they're doing it on purpose or it just, the S1 shop just wasn't really good at keeping track of docking people's days when they take leave. Generally, guys end up with, 100+ days of leave when they should only have maybe 20 or 30. It wasn't tracked that often or that well. And so guys would typically take about 30 days or so to go do whatever, go travel.
So you get about a month. So you took about a month off once you came home?
Yeah, about a month is what we took. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you just go right back into they do different trainings. They send you places where you're training people and you're going all over. Is what's happening?
Yeah, it's the taskings can come down from USASOC, U.S. Army Special Operations Command. Hey, we need so many Green Berets to go do this or to go do that, or for, whatever tasking you can think of. It's, it comes down, or you need to go help augment, another team or something like that.
And did you like doing that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like I would like that better if I were you, because it wouldn't be as scary as war, but you're still learning and you're still helping other people and you're doing the stuff that you're really good at.
Well, think of it this way. Think about if an NFL player only played one game in his entire career, that's not why they ascended to that level or how they trained to get to that level, or, so the desire was to always go back.
Okay.
Continue to do that. That's what we signed up for.
And did they give you a time when you were going to go back, or you're just waiting to hear?
Well, you're generally on a rotation. And at the time they hadn't really set in place, okay, however long you're gone, you'll be home 3 times that amount of time. It was like more of like a 2-to-1. So, however much time you were gone, you could expect to be home for, twice that amount of time, or possibly 3 times that amount of time.
Oh, okay.
It generally was never 3, up until maybe 2010 or 11, the 3-to-1 was just a pipe dream. It's what God level commanders were saying. This is what we're going to do to take care of our men, but it never happened. It never happened. And it's so strange. There's the, guys, how are the guys just getting burned out so much? And, well, what do you mean? How are we getting burned out? You keep telling us we're going to do this 3-to-1, and oh, well, hey, we've got this thing really important that's come down, and we really need, okay, we got to, it's just, it turned into a joke, to be honest with you. There's, and guys, but you're dealing with a group of people who are not going to say no, and God level commanders capitalize on that.
Yeah, they weren't going to say, if they came and asked you to go back early, you can't wait to go back. So you're going to say yes, right?
Or even if I didn't want to, what am I going to do? Say no?
Right.
I'm a Green Beret. I'm supposed to be that war hungry individual. So it finally got to the point where it was a 3-to-1. People up top actually started taking what they were saying seriously, and it changed. I mean, think about it. We were gone. Generally, our deployments were 6 months, sometimes even shorter, maybe 4 to 6 months. I think I did 1 9-month rotation. Think about those 18, 19, 20-year-old kids who did 15 and 18-month deployments, multiples.
Wow.
and it's like, did we not learn anything from Vietnam? So, the animosity towards upper level, if you can't tell, I still hold on to it quite a
Oh
bit,
yeah.
because I saw the deterioration of, friends of mine who, they're just too good of men to say, no, I can't do this. And, tragedy struck in whatever fashion. So, uh, that's kind
I'm sure you felt like you just wanted them to be in your shoes to see what it was like, and they're telling you what to do, but they're not there. Because I can identify with that. Yeah.
well, Green Berets are kind of their own worst enemies too. The it doesn't matter what it is, the mission, we'll get it done. Well, we've only got so much money, we can only supply so much this, we can only give it, well, we'll just figure it out. And so honestly, we were just our own worst enemies, because when we should have said, well, no, this is
Yeah,
what we,
we need this. Yeah.
I mean, think about it, up until a certain period of time, there wasn't even armor for Humvee doors, and it took a Marine who had enough guts during a big rally or something like that, up in Washington, D.C., to stand up and go, hey, sir, how about the up armored doors and things like that on the Humvees that we've been getting promised for a year? So just really, really unfortunate in that sense. But you're dealing, like I said, you're dealing with a population of people who have a no fail mindset.
Well, that's how you were trained too.
No, I wouldn't say that that's how we were trained.
Were you trained to ask for what you needed?
I would say that we were selected based off characteristics that we have that said these are guys that will accomplish the mission, whether they have what they need to accomplish it or not.
Right, right, right.
That's a mind frame, and you can ask and beg and plead for all the right equipment and things like that. This is what we need. But at the end of the day, that God level commander is just going to go, well, you did it last time with less. Why can't you do it now? You need to suck it up, So yeah, you have people that are willing to say, hey, we need this, but you also have a group of people who are going to get it done regardless. So,
Right, right. I
and
imagine that is painful to process now that you look back.
it was painful for me to process, but I made it. I was one of the lucky ones that survived it and got through it. How about the thousands of veterans that commit suicide every day because, they didn't get the help they need, or that was, so there is quite a bit of animosity, I guess, that I would say. Yeah.
I think that makes sense. That would be hard. Yeah, I feel for all you went through. Okay, so is there anything else that happened that you want to talk about with staying home and training and going different places?
I would have to say that I had moved into a period of time where I was starting to really gel with the people in my company, with the people on my team, really in the battalion. Um, it was actually really difficult for me because the next deployment that came down, I was starting to have my marriage was completely, had completely been detonated, and I had detonated it because all I cared about was not being there. And so we had a sergeant major that came in, and a company commander, and both of these guys they're the tip of the spear. Taking care of their guys was their number one thing. And so I actually had to sit the next deployment out. The sergeant major was like, listen, Brian, I care too much about you as a person to let you go into the next deployment with this mind frame. And
so the sergeant major recognized you weren't mentally healthy, things were going bad in your personal life, and said you can't go.
Yeah, my
That
team.
had to be hard to hear.
I went in there and sat down with my team sergeant John, who his primary care was his guys. That is what he cared about, and he's like, hey, you've got a lot going on. Your wife right now is we had experienced multiple miscarriages at the time.
Oh.
And so was I in the right frame of mind to deploy? No, but the the side of my brain that was said adapt and overcome, and you have people that are depending on you, my teammates, as opposed to my wife. It took John and Sergeant Major to be like, hey, we get it, but you're gonna sit this one out. Maybe you get into it, 2 or 3 months, and things are good here. Then maybe you can come over, but we'll monitor that. And it's more important for us for you to get healthy right now. And
Wow.
that was a kick in the chest. That was a real kick in the chest
So
because
did you take their advice and did you look at your marriage and look what was going on, or were you just focusing on you just couldn't wait to get back to war?
I I would say that I was doing the minimal amount possible to keep things from completely imploding at the house. We were our battalion was gone again. So when a battalion's gone, each company has a rear detachment, so 2 or 3 people that stayed back and assisted with getting whatever needed to get done for the guys that were forward. And but it was a one-man job. It literally was a one-man job. So there were 3 of us. There was another guy that was kind of in the same situation, also on my team. And so he and I stayed back, and one other guy, he was getting ready to retire, and so he was there, and we basically went on a, you know, 1 day on, 2 days off, and so did I do a lot of work on trying to fix me? No. What I actually did was a lot of turkey hunting and deer hunting and shooting and talking back and forth with the guys on my team. Hey, I'm getting there, should be getting ready to come back, and I'd submit another request, and Sergeant Major's like, I don't think so. And this was 2007. This is when the surge was going on, when it had initiated. And
And what's the surge?
the surge is when they did the big push towards quelling the insurgency that was happening, getting a large amount of Iranian influence that was coming in. And my team at the time was down in a place called Al Qut, which was a very hot area, pretty close to the Iranian border. And it was tough. It was tough hearing about my guys getting into gunfights and what they were going through and dealing with. And that was also a time when the IEDs that were coming in from Iran, uh, they were starting to set them up on stakes, and it was we took really heavy losses because they were setting them up at head level, so instead of just having them in the ground, now they were propped up, is basically like having the bottom of a concave can, packing it full of explosives. And then when they clacked that thing off, that thing would shoot through a safe. And so we were losing a lot of people. So I'm
So you're hearing of people dying in the war?
hearing of people I know that are dying, but I'm also starting to deal with this tremendous amount of guilt for not being there to help the guys that we spent so much time together working to, protecting each other. And here they are in harm's way. And every other day I hear about something cooking off down in Al Qut. And
Ugh,
I just, it was really,
I
that was
cannot
really
even
hard.
imagine. It wasn't like you could be away from it and focus on yourself. You didn't have the
Mhm.
tools to know how to focus on yourself, but also you're hearing this news every day. So I don't see
Mhm.
how you could have possibly been in a good mindset. Also, you grew up your first few years before you were adopted. You didn't grow up in a loving, warm family where you're seeing your mom and dad care about each other and work through disagreements and being emotionally supportive of one another. You never had that growing up. And then when you met the Zimmermans, they saved you, but you were still in the mindset of, I better do everything I can so my parents still love me and accept me. I'm going to be the very best version of myself. So you haven't really got to that place of just love and welcome no matter who you are. So I get
Mhm.
it. I get it why you didn't come home and they say you can't go back, you need to work on your marriage, and you couldn't work on your marriage. You didn't know how to, you know? I mean, it makes sense to me. You didn't know how to. So of course you're going to go turkey hunting with your friends that have been there and know what that's like. It just makes sense to me. And I'm just so sorry. It sounds terrible to hear my friend seeing your friends die. I can't even fathom that and not being over there to help them. At the same time, I'm really glad you weren't there. It sounds very dangerous. I'm glad you're alive, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where that's a lot of where the guilt comes from, I would say, is, and thank God we didn't lose anyone on that deployment, but we were still losing people uh, every day. It was happening on a daily basis, and you try to process those feelings and those thoughts, and what ends up happening is you don't know how to process it, so you drink it, numb. And there are multiple days. A buddy of mine, I remember specifically a day, we were getting ready to go deer hunting, and he got a call that his best friend, had been killed the day before, and so what do we do? Well, we get drunk and we go deer hunting and sit in a tree stand and drink some more, and that's how you process it and deal with it, so. And I venture to say that I'm not alone on that. I'd say there are a great number of people who that's how they coped with that kind of grief and pain.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I'm just so sorry for everybody that was involved in all of this. I just remember I'm like out of college, new teacher. It was on the news every day.
Mm-hmm.
Every day we heard about Americans dying. Every day we heard about bombs and all this terrible stuff. And I'm reading the book now and finding out they didn't play by normal warfare. They're doing terrible tactics. They're not following what is it, the Geneva Convention of like the code of war. They're not following that stuff. And I remember being traumatized and I tried not to watch it because it was so sad. So I think younger people that may be watching this that didn't grow up with that on the news every day, it might be hard to imagine
Mm-hmm.
seeing you're seeing pictures of these young men, and women, these young people that are doing this ultimate sacrifice for us, dying, and we're just like, horrified. And here you are, it's your literal friends and people you care about, and it's your friends. I mean, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. That's I think that's something that's kind of lost on our current up and coming generation. And I'm not saying that I'm glad that I had that, but what it did do for me was I chose to go to a place to where I appreciate it instead of looking back at it and just living in that dark place. I was fortunate enough, one of the fortunate ones to be able to come through it. And I'm choosing to capitalize on happiness and what I learned from that. So
Well, you
that's what.
pulled out of it and you're very mentally fit now. And I'm so thankful for that. And I hope that your buddies that you still talk to, I hope that they've been able to get to that place too, because if you can't get mentally fit, I don't know how you're surviving it. What's in your head, what you went through and experienced.
Yeah, that's which is a really being able to get together for this retirement ceremony for just a I'd die for this guy kind of friend, and I got to meet so many of my friends that I feel the same way for, and just seeing them how they're choosing to push forward in a healthy way. It's been phenomenal. I will say kind of a down moment. I found out last night that a very good friend of mine who came up through the Q course together, and a lot of us just really close, but he ended up spending 14 years over at the unit over at Delta, and uh, he was killed in a car wreck. He's 40 years old. He's got two kids. He's got a wife. He's the epitome of a godly man, a husband, a father. And so it's easier for me to wrap my mind around, having lost people in combat. But what I can't wrap my head around is God's timing for things like this. I don't, and I know that it's not for me to. It's not. I know that it's not for me to understand, but it's still that's the I guess one of the tragedies. Just it's life. You know, life is going to happen when you least expect it, and life doesn't just happen to bad people; it happens to good people too. And so, you know, I think it was good for me to be here in this environment to find out about that,
Oh,
just because I have people here that we can talk about it, and they're choosing happiness also, and choosing to, you know, instead of pick up a bottle, let's talk about this, you know.
I'm so sorry about your friend, and I'm so sorry to everybody involved.
Yeah.
I'm sad we're states away. I can't even give you a hug, but I'm so sorry.
His name
Life is
was
precious. What was his name?
his name was Anders Johansson. Yeah, just you know, if I could end up being half the man that he was, I'd be in a good place. So, but that's his name.
I've lost people that I care a lot about, and I think of the sad things of the loss, but then I can also think about the good memories. And if I
Mhm.
don't think about the sad things, I can't think about the good things. That's something I've learned about grief. Like my husband lost his dad a couple years ago, and we think about the grief and how bad it was when he was sick and in pain for so long, but then we can also think about the good times. So just
Yeah.
always remember that with the bad, you can also do the good. But I'm so sorry, that poor family.
Yeah.
And then another thing that I always remember with grief is the love that your friend gave to his friends and his family, that doesn't go away. He's
No.
gone, his human form is gone, but that love is there and it will stay there throughout everybody that he impacted their whole life. They still have that. And
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
my husband is such a great man, and a lot of that is because of his dad. His dad's gone, but that part of him's still in there, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He touched a lot of lives. There's no doubt about that. Mm.
I'm so sorry. I'm glad you're up there in Colorado and you're getting to be with your friends right now. Okay,
Yeah.
so back to your story. Whew, that just sounds so rough. How long were you home that first time? Like, how long did this last since you weren't allowed to go back when you wanted to?
I let's see. They ended up coming back. I believe it was maybe March of what would have been March of '08, I think. And they came back, and there had you could tell that a lot of guys on the team they were struggling with what it was that they experienced, you know. And unfortunately, you know, we had a teammate, John Downing, you know, do anything for anyone, you know, country bumpkin as it gets. You know, he opened his mouth and banjos came out. You know, just one of the most amazing, you know, cats. And you know, he ended up a loss to suicide. You know, and his wife at the time, you know, and he talked about, you know, he would talk about things to her, and just the inability to get away from those demons that were in his mind. You know, so it was a really tough trip on those guys. And it's just a constant reminder that war is something, once you've experienced it, really experienced it. I'm not just saying you're in country and you live behind walls for, you know, for a year. I mean, but when you're in it, you're breathing it, tasting it, smelling it, you know, day in and day out. It stays with you. It will never go away. So it was something for me that I took seriously, but I also just I could feel that hunger of I wanted to be right back in it. I needed to be there because that's where I was valid. That's where I was my best me, or so I thought.
I bet that
So
was so hard to see your friends with the weight of being in war longer than you and the weight of people they
mm,
knew not making it.
mm.
I bet that was very hard for you because I'm sure you put some of that on yourself and you were like, well, if I was over there, maybe I could have saved some of them, or if I was over there, maybe I could have mentally helped them deal with it. Did you put some of that on yourself?
Honestly, that was that was just one of those things that immediately got compartmentalized, and
Okay.
you realize that he was a tragedy of war without being at war.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and that was happening a lot. And you just and it's not as if people weren't saying, the military was saying, no, you got to talk to people, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to reach out when you're in pain. How do you do that? When you're in pain, and it's so severe and it's so deep and it has seared you to the core. And first of all, 99% of the people out there have no idea, no comprehension of what it is you're going to talk to them about. And so where do you turn? Who do you turn to for that? Well, you have your teammates, you have those guys, and when you're with the team, when you're on the team, you're good. You are good. You don't need to talk about it because you're good. You're in your environment where you're thriving. They
Mm-hmm.
understand how you feel. You understand how they feel. But what about the time when you're not there? When you are on that 30 days leave, and you're stuck in your own thoughts and what you've experienced. So
That
that
makes
was
sense.
tough.
The compartmentalizing. Okay, so where do you want to go from here? So you were home and in training and working. Did you stay married during this whole time? These 2 years?
No, that marriage fell apart. We got divorced, and as soon as I was divorced, I was gone again. I was ready to go again, and we did. We ended up deploying to the Middle East again, to a different country, and it was I loved it. I was getting to the point where I use the word addicted or addiction loosely, because I don't know that it's just what I was familiar with. And so we went there, did our thing, and then came back and got ready to go again. We did another one, I think maybe 6 or 7 months later. And then we came back, and probably where we'll pick up on the next show is we ended up taking the first Jordanian special operations unit to Afghanistan. And so that was, that was, wow. The idea that we didn't lose anyone that trip is absolutely baffling to me. Absolutely. So.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about it. If you like the stories that Brian is telling and you want more, the Masters of Chaos book that Brian gave me is a lot like this podcast. It's a lot of the stories, a lot of missions, and you really realize how much special forces did. And like you came into a situation and you were given very little information and you just had a goal or whatever and you had to figure it out for yourself. That's what I'm constantly shocked about with the book and impressed with these people that are doing these tough, hard things. It's always a new, tough, hard thing. And then wait, it just got a lot harder than you thought it was going to be. And then there's this other problem that pops up, and then there's another problem. So yeah, I'm blown away by all of the things that you and the other special forces have been doing, and we know they're working now. There are people out there doing these incredibly tough things now for us, and I'm just so thankful and
Yeah.
grateful. And and I'm just so proud of you, my friend, for getting mentally fit and for going on this journey. It takes a lot of trust, and I'm thankful that you trust me and that you trust our audience. And I know they all care immensely about you. A shout out to my mother-in-law who posted on here. She cares a lot about you. She said, "Thank you so much, Brian, for sharing your story. It gives us an insight into the amazing experiences of the special forces."
Yeah.
I know that I like that. I like that people get to know you and care about you, because I care so much about you, and I'm so thankful. So that's
Yeah.
been a nice. Hopefully, you're
Oh yeah.
just before we leave. What has it been like sharing this story and having a few thousand people watch?
Well, one, I just want to say to those people out there watching, thank you very much. This helps me just as much as I hope it may be helping some of you out there, and to the veterans that are out there. I understand your pain. I understand that it hurts. I understand that it's a kick to the chest. when you lose people, especially not even when you're in the combat environment and you lose people, that's understood, but when you lose people to freak accidents, to alcoholism, to suicide, to any number of things, that is, like I said, that's a kick to the chest. And I just want you all to know out there that all it does take is to just reach out and say, hey, I need to talk about this. And so I would beg you, I beg you to just swallow that little bit of whatever you need to swallow in order for you to talk to someone and, and push forward with that.
I would think the first time admitting to what's actually in your head is probably one of the hardest.
Oh, yeah. Just like anything else, the more often you do it, the easier it gets, the better at it you'll become, the better person you become, not only in talking about these kinds of things, but a better communicator as a friend, as a husband, as a father, or a mother, or, that it does get better. It does.
Yeah, you need to find your people, find somebody that you trust. And if you need to get a professional, but just somebody that loves you for who you are and they're not judgmental and you can just open up and see how they handle it. Your friends and family, those ones that just love you unconditionally, that's who you want to try this out on. So if you're watching this and you're like, maybe it's time I opened my own trauma, my own things in my life, maybe it's time I just hope that you take that first leap of faith and know with the hard times and the sadness is going to come a lot of joy and peace and love and acceptance in yourself that you should get, Yeah.
And if you don't have anyone out there, send me a text through the Project Next website. I'll talk to you. I'll hear whatever it is you have to say and we'll figure it out. We'll get it figured out.
Audrey, I don't know if you know her. She said, you are a very special human, Brian. Thank you for all you are doing and have done. Onward and upward, my friend.
Thank you, Audrey.
That's nice. Yeah. So that's something that I learned too. You find your people when you're willing to be open and honest and be yourself and admit your faults. The people that don't judge you and just love you, those are your people. Keep contact with them. It's kind of rare. Sometimes not everybody can handle that. And usually it's because they haven't learned how to open up and be that way too. But I hope everybody has those people. I think that's really nice of you that you're saying, reach out to you, Brian. Yeah. Find your people, open up a little bit, and we'll just take this journey together. And you can watch our other episodes too, and maybe they'll help you. Yeah. So we'll come back next week. Do you want to do the same time?
Yeah, next week I'm actually working a contract job out here,
neat.
Like Denver, and so we may have to adjust the time a little bit, but I'm pretty sure because most of what I'll be doing is at night. So yeah, we'll be able to do about the same time. Yeah.
It's funny that we're 2 hours apart. Yeah. So just let me know when you want to have it. So it'll be on Monday sometime next week. Yeah. And I hope you have a great time in Colorado. And thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks everyone out there. We appreciate you.
Please send this episode to someone that might benefit from it. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Project Next Movement, or you can just look up Project Next. It's also a podcast wherever you get podcasts. And we're on Instagram and Facebook and Twitch. So yeah, thank you everybody. Thanks for following, and we'll see you next week. I'm doing another show on Wednesday with a person, what is his name? Tony Hostetler, who is one of the main organizers for Hoosier Action, which is a really wonderful organization in Indiana that tries to push for better legislation. And he is a recovering addict. And he really helps a lot of people with overcoming addiction and with just getting better policies so that we can support people in need in Indiana. So I cannot wait. I have not met him in person. I cannot wait to talk to him and find out more about Hoosier Action, which is a really wonderful place. So that is Wednesday. Thursday, Mad Voters. Kelly DeLong is going to do a deep dive on what in the world just happened at the State House, what laws are coming. Shocker, they're defunding public education again. And then Friday, Plots and Politics with Corinne. So full lineup of shows.
Yeah. Sounds good.
And have a great week and see you guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And we'll see you next Monday. Bye, everybody.
Take care, friends.